Nadia Bilchik is a television news anchor, keynote speaker, author, trainer, and communications consultant.
19 number one best-selling
have been nominated and won so many awards throughout your careers.
She has a wealth of experience interviewing and consulting with well-renowned figures, celebrities, and corporations. Nadia speaks on how to get people to like you, trust you, and want to do business with you.
Over the last few weeks, the entire world has been monitoring the treatment of your grandfather, Nelson Mandela. And my job was to introduce it and provide.
With topics like leveraging the power of your personal presence, networking for success, and lighting the fire. Nadia Bilchik.
And this evening, I am so delighted to be joined by my siblings, Drs Bilchik, Anton Bilchik, and Brian Bilchik. And it's so lovely to see you guys, if not in person, then virtually. So
Thank you.
starting with you, here we are. We started having these conversations in March of 2020. It is now September of 2021. As a neurologist in Hartford, Connecticut, and you are seeing, no longer Hartford now, New Haven, Connecticut, you're seeing headache patients, what impact has COVID is having?
Actually, it's interesting because my migraine patients that have had COVID have been miserable. They've had worsening headaches, long duration headaches, and I even have several of my patients who have, 6 months out after having COVID in 2020 and early 2021 have not really gone back to baseline. So I think the patients that have had COVID have been worse. Well, some of them, not all of them, but some of them have been worse. On the other hand, I saw somebody the other day who was scared of getting vaccinated because she was concerned that the vaccine was going to cause more headaches, and she had already got significant headache disability. And I've seen that as well. I've seen patients that have never had headaches get headaches after the vaccine. And I've seen patients that are reluctant to get the vaccine because they're concerned about getting worsening of headache. And, I'm kind of thinking that potentially the headaches that are after having had COVID are worse than the headaches that you get after having the vaccine. And it's really hard to convince people that that's the case unless it actually happens to them. So that's kind of my experience in a nutshell.
And Dr. Anton Bilchik in Los Angeles, California, just your current experience, what you're seeing, what you want to share with us.
Well, I'm frustrated because I feel in many ways we've come such a long way in terms of beating this pandemic, and now we've taken a step back. We're very fortunate in California to have more than 70% of adults vaccinated. So our hospitals are not reaching capacity in the intensive care unit. We're still doing elective surgeries. But the fact that the numbers are going up, the fact that more people are showing up in the hospital, most of which are unvaccinated, is just very frustrating, because with more than 200 million people now vaccinated around the world, and with the amount of science out there to really prove that the vaccine really works, I get very frustrated by patients that I see in our clinic who still won't get vaccinated. It's just not fair on their families. It's not fair on themselves. And quite frankly, it's not fair on the healthcare workers either.
And Dr. Brian Bilchik, who's a cardiologist in Boston.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Anton said. It's incredibly frustrating. I think we're all feeling this intense COVID fatigue as we were starting to see a way out of this, and now suddenly we're back within that realm of dealing with increasing numbers, people getting sick again, and Massachusetts is very similar to California in the way that we have a very high incidence of vaccination. But this Delta variant has been a game changer, and it's changed all the paradigms that we had spoken about before. What is clear, and going back to a year and a half ago, is this notion that masks actually still work. There was actually an interesting study recently out of Bangladesh that randomized masks, because no one's really randomized masks as a study, and they proved that randomizing people to masks actually increased the.
Just explain what randomizing to masks mean.
So I would tell you that when you do a drug trial, you do a randomized study, and the vaccine trials looked at people who got sham vaccines versus real vaccines, and it showed that there was a tremendous benefit to those who had got vaccines. In other words, they did not get as sick, and they're almost 95% efficacy on the initial coronavirus variants. But in Bangladesh, they actually randomized people. It wasn't obviously controlled or blinded, because you either knew that you were wearing a mask or not. But they gave a subset of the population masks to wear, and it showed that their incidence of infection was actually much lower than those who didn't wear masks. So that's one of the mistakes that we made as a society and as a healthcare environment. I say we, CDC and even Fauci was trying to spare masks for healthcare providers and told people that masks didn't work initially. So there's a lot of distrust in the healthcare industry and the CDC and FDA and all of them. And so we're going, swimming uphill or upstream rather, to try battle that. And there's so much misinformation and disinformation and distrust, but truly, the science is very clear, and it's very frustrating, as Anton said, seeing the recurrence.
So you hear this, and I know the three of you do, and I hear this all the time. Breakthrough cases, people who've been double and even triple vaccinated still getting sick. And then what are the side effects? I know somebody who is concerned, we spoke about this earlier, Anton and I, his health has deteriorated since getting the vaccine. So how, and I'm just curious from all of you, and please go in whatever order you would like, how do you combat that kind of rhetoric, what people are saying? Because yes, the science is clear, but there's a big but.
Well, I'll jump in. I'm just going to say that I have not seen one vaccinated person die in our hospital. Not one. I mean, as simple as that. And what I'm seeing are, younger people, 30s, 40s, 50s, showing up. And as Brian mentioned, this variant is much more aggressive, and it makes people sicker, and they go down quicker. And to listen to people that are about to go onto a breathing machine say, well, okay, now I'll have the vaccine. Absolutely, it's just beyond any comprehension. But I have not seen. I mean, I'm very much aware of vaccinated people testing positive, but most of those people that test positive may have mild symptoms or no symptoms at all. And I think that's the important point to understand.
And then this friend of ours who said, as a result of the vaccine, is quite sure that has been a result of severe health issues. Because that's the argument. That's what people are saying. So, and I'm sure every single person who's watching this knows somebody who isn't getting vaccinated because they're either scared of the side effects.
I would just say to one of those people, just walk into a hospital and watch a 35-year-old show up in an emergency room short of breath, and then rapidly deteriorate and die 2 days later. A headache versus death within 48 hours, it's not difficult to understand.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and how do we know that things aren't just coincidental? People blame symptoms on something that they can date or that they can find, but it may not be. It may just be coincidental. There may be, 1 and 1 doesn't make 2.
Now, Brian, I know in your practice.
Yeah, I think in medicine, we're always weighing up risk and benefit of any kind of intervention or treatment. And in this situation, not getting vaccinated, certainly the risk is significantly higher than the risk of vaccines at this point. Um, and these are new. It's a new vaccine process. It's a new virus, but this is killing people and it's maiming people. And it's not just the older, infirm people who are dying and are getting sick now. And as I said, the Delta variant is a game changer in how quick people deteriorate. And the vaccines and masks, really. I mean, vaccines help to people who have. This is where the issue is. People who have been vaccinated are still having breakthrough infection. And no one ever promised that there would be zero breakthrough infection. In fact, the way vaccines work is they increase your immunity so that you don't get sick or as sick for as long, but it's not 100% that you're not going to get, a viral infection. That's not how vaccines work. But people who have had vaccines are much less infectious for shorter periods of time than those people who haven't had vaccines. But you can still transmit it if you've had a vaccine. And now we're talking about getting the third shot or a booster shot. And what's interesting now is that we were very quick in the United States of vaccinating people according to the protocol of the first vaccine, and 3 weeks later the Pfizer vaccine, 4 weeks later the Moderna vaccine. And in countries where there was a delay between the first and the second vaccine, they seem to have had more immunity. And so we're learning now about those kinds of delays. What is the right timing? But certainly the Israeli experience is showing that people who have had the Pfizer vaccine and then 3 weeks later the second Pfizer vaccine, within 6 months their immunity is starting to wane, and so they're about 30 to 50% protected. But again, people, as Anton said, they're not getting as sick and they're not dying unless they're seriously immunocompromised or other kinds of comorbid issues. But we have seen very
questions
few
that are coming in. Okay, so thanks. That's very helpful. Questions that are coming in that I'm seeing, things like, okay, now FDA has approved Pfizer. So if I had Moderna, should my booster be Pfizer? Those kind of confusions and questions. Any thoughts that you have?
Actually, they're recommending that you get what you had before unless it's not available. And at least in my institution and organization, until it comes through from the CDC and the task force about a booster, they're only recommending boosters for immunocompromised, whereas in Israel, they're recommending boosters for everybody over the age of 20 at the moment. And I just want to bring something up, because in the 1950s, early 1950s, there was a polio epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
It maimed and killed and devastated children. And when the polio vaccine came out, people lined up to get the polio vaccine, and nobody would have ever even thought about not getting the polio vaccine because it was their kids. And it just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me now that you have this huge anti-vaccination population, because now the kids can't get vaccinated because it's not approved. So you would think that people would want to protect their children. And so it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
And I think, just to add to what Tanya's saying, so we've got two issues right now. We've got messaging and we've got timing. Right. So I don't think that there's any question that Moderna is going to recommend a booster shot. It's just the data was just submitted to the FDA, I believe, on Friday. But the concept of a reduction in antibodies over time has now been well studied. It's been published, and the Moderna vaccine works in a very similar way to the Pfizer vaccine. It's just that the Pfizer vaccine has been FDA reviewed and approved for a booster shot. President Biden, I think, was, thought that everything may be approved by September the 20th by the FDA, the Moderna booster shot. Well, it takes a little bit of time. There's always two sides to the story, because no one wants to, jump the gun and do something that the FDA has not had a chance to fully vet. On the other hand, people are frustrated because if they had the Moderna, they're asking the question that you just asked, which is, well, if people can get a Pfizer booster shot and I'm immunocompromised, because I had Moderna, I'm just going to go in and get the Pfizer shot. And it's confusing. But and in fact, there are some studies in Europe suggesting that you can mix and match vaccines. It's not being recommended at our institution. It's not being recommended by the FDA or the CDC. But this is all about data and more information. And we're going to, each day we seem to learn something new.
So it's so interesting because Brian, your practice is a mixture of athletes. Brian is a sports cardiologist. He deals with very high level athletes. And then you also have a more geriatric population that are your patients. So I'm curious for you, in terms of the more geriatric patients, are you going to recommend the booster shot? And then just any other advice? And please add to whatever anyone else is saying.
Well, just to add about the booster or the third vaccine, because it's not really a different formulation than the first or the second, but one has to bring into the conversation the issue of Johnson & Johnson vaccines. And that's been shown with the second vaccine to improve or increase your immunity by about, many-fold. And yet people who have had the Johnson & Johnson are feeling very frustrated and anxious because no one's telling them what to do, and it hasn't been part of the conversation. And in fact, there was a op-ed piece in the New York Times this last weekend talking about those people who, were told just get no one had a choice which vaccine to get, right? They just got what was available. And those people who got the Johnson & Johnson are now feeling very frustrated and shortchanged. As far as my recommendations to my patients, I am only recommending those people who are immunosuppressed, who have organ transplants, kidney transplant, heart transplants, or are on steroids. And steroids are meaning high doses, more than 20 milligrams a day. That's the current recommendation, and that's the only kinds of people I can recommend get a third shot. And it really, truly is very confusing to all of us because Anton just mentioned that the third shot has been approved, but it's only really been approved for those people who are immunocompromised. It hasn't, not for healthcare workers yet. And I had my second vaccine in January, so I am absolutely close to 8 months since my second vaccine. I am understanding that my immunity may be waning. There's nothing I can do about it other than be extremely cautious and wear a mask indoors and, not go to indoor restaurants and not go to concerts. And, it's as soon as schools go back, and there's going to be a huge increase because kids under the age of 12 are not vaccinated. And that was part of the problem in Israel. They have a very young population, by the way. So, 30 to 40% or something, or, some uncanny number are under the age of 12 and haven't been vaccinated. So, if once it's been approved, the more people that get vaccinated, even their first or their second shot, it really will change the paradigm. The booster shots or the third shot is incredibly controversial because there are other countries that haven't had enough vaccine to vaccinate their population, even with one shot, to improve immunity. But until, this country has an opportunity to beat this and to get on track, and, it's a gift. And it makes absolutely no sense. And just to echo what Anton and Tanya have said, it's incredibly frustrating, this notion of COVID fatigue and burnout. And, for the first time ever, doctors actually walked out. They staged a walkout in Florida because they feel that they are not getting the support of their governor or the government to mandate masks and vaccines. Many workplaces are mandating it. Hospital mandates it for everyone who's patient-facing. and so it's incredibly important that everyone gets on board. And unfortunately, there are media and forms of conspiracy theorists who are getting to the population, and when you see what's going on, and we're all very lucky where we are, and where the Northeast, and where Anton is in California, but Louisiana, Mississippi, all these states are, there's nowhere to put people. In fact, they're bringing in, trucks that can freeze the dead bodies because there's no place to put them in the mortuaries. I mean, it's just bizarre that we have a gift and we're not taking advantage of it. And I think it's irresponsible and it's selfish.
And I have to just say, I also have to say that, part of the reason that I find this whole conversation so sad and frustrating and depressing and bewildering is that, right now we've had these huge fires on the West Coast. We've had floods on the East Coast. We see people helping people, digging holes through massive chunks of concrete to save lives. And at the same time, we have parents at school council meetings punching each other in the face over masks.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. We've lost this semblance of decency, of wanting to help one another. And we're seeing snippets of it. But to try and make any sense of what's happening with the masking situation, many kids have already gone back to school and their schools already closed down, or they've been sent home. And, I spoke to someone yesterday from Texas who has 3 kids. The kids were at school for 2 days. One of the kids tested positive. Every kid in the school was sent home, and they don't know when they're allowed back. And this is
one other thing I wanted to add.
Yes.
This crazy notion of using anti-parasitic medication, ivermectin. I mean, we're the anti-malarial drug chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, and now ivermectin, and people will take this stuff, but they won't get a vaccine. Mm-hmm. That's friggin' crazy.
Or even wear a mask.
Nuts.
Take that or not wear a mask.
And yet, when they admitted to the hospitals, they're not saying to us as clinicians, "Oh, please don't treat me. I don't want oxygen because it hasn't been proven," or it's suddenly they throw themselves at your mercy, and we are all taking care of these people, and it's really hard. We all have taken the Hippocratic Oath, and it feels very frustrating that you have to take care of people who are at a moment in time where they could actually change their trajectory, and everyone else's. And it's not just about them, it's about the people around them and us.
Yeah. Now, let me just give you another caveat. I am wondering, there are so many people that have tattoos. Is tattoo ink FDA approved? That's my last question mark. Is tattoo ink actually FDA approved? And you will find that I suspect that it's most likely not approved. And so there's your answer.
Well, my thought around this evening was this. We live in a world where there's so little we can control. We call it VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. I'm going to do a whip round and say, because I promised you to keep it brief this evening, guys, I'll do a whip round and I'll just go in order of A, B, and then T. How about that? Starting with you, Ant, what can we control and what is your final message on this day in September?
My message is similar to what it was a year and a half ago, and that's to pause, think, and make good decisions.
Thank you. Brian?
Stop, think, and chew. So what I wanted to actually say and reflect, if I might, as the Jewish New Year is upon us, it is a time to reflect. And this last year and a half has gone by so quickly and yet so slowly. It's been a fog. We've all experienced so much loss and so much discomfort and so much confusion. Now it's the time to really reset after reflecting on the year, how we're going to improve upon what we are as humans, how we can reach out to others, how we can be kinder, better as we move beyond where we've been, and as we, welcome in a new year. And, whether you're religious or not, it's an opportunity to reflect and reset and be kind.
Thank you, Tanya.
Oh, mine is really simple. You can't control other people, so control yourself and wear a mask and try and avoid situations like mass crowds where you can actually get in trouble, because you can help yourself, but you can't help everybody around you if they won't listen. So do what you can to protect yourself and your family.
Thank you to Drs Bilchik, and Bilchik. We look forward to many, many more fascinating conversations. Thank you all so much.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.